Hi guys, it's Phil.
And Liam.
From Die Hard on a Blank, and we're excited to talk to you about a brand new podcast we're launching called 48 Hours of Buddy Movies.
That's right, folks. 48-hour-long...
approximately.
...episodes exploring 48 different buddy movies, beginning with the original classic that started it all, Walter Hill's 1982 masterpiece, 48 Hours, starring Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy.
And just like Die Hard on a Blank, our new show will explore the influence of 48 Hours on the action genre, one buddy movie at a time.
We'll be covering iconic franchises such as the Beverly Hills Cop movies, the Stakeout movies, the Bad Boys movies, classics of the genre like Running Scared,
Hyams Hive Rise Up,
Midnight Run, Red Heat, Tango and Cash, The Hard Way,
plus tough thrillers such as To Live and Die in LA, Black Rain, Point Break, Training Day, and The Way of the Gun.
As well as a few wild cards that you might not expect, such as RoboCop, Alien Nation, and, of course, Phil's favorite,
Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
So if you're a fan of two buddies talking buddy movies,
then 48 Hours of Buddy Movies is for you.
Visit patreon.com/48 Hours of Buddy Movies to subscribe for the price of 1 cup of coffee a month.
See you in the squad car.
Or walking to the squad car, mildly irritated that we've been paired off.
Wherever. That's patreon.com/48 Hours of Buddy Movies to subscribe. Welcome to Die Hard on a Blank, the podcast where we explore the influence of Die Hard on action cinema, one action movie at a time. I'm Philip Gawthorne, and with me as always is Liam Billingham, and today's film is A Good Day to Die Hard.
It's Die Hard in Mother Russia. Yippee-ki-yay, Mother Russia.
That was the tagline.
Yeah.
Not sure how we feel about it. We'll get into it now. Guys, this is our final episode. We started with the original Die Hard. We've covered 80 subsequent films that were influenced by it in some way. And so it only seems fitting to end with the fifth and final Die Hard film that we'll be covering today. But we're also going one step further than that, because to honor the culmination of the show, we have a very special guest. A multi-talented director, producer, screenwriter extraordinaire whose extensive writing credits include films such as 48 Hours, Commando, The Running Man, Ricochet, Die Hard 2, and of course the original Die Hard. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Stephen E. De Souza.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for sending the company jet. I enjoyed the flight service. It was just wonderful.
What film did they show? What movie?
With the animals. Zootopia 2.
Oh, good. I like that one.
The interns do good work now and again, and I'm glad that they took care of you.
You know, that's kind of in the vein of a 48 Hours.
Yeah,
so that I like Zootopia too.
Well, the first one is even more like 48 Hours because it's a cop and a crook.
That's right. I like those movies.
And by the way, I don't know if you know this, Stephen, but we also, as well as being like absolute insane fans of Die Hard to the extent that we've dedicated this show about it, we also have a side show that's called 48 Hours of Buddy Movies that is about 48 Hours influence on the buddy movie genre. So this is like it's kind of at a crazy intersection of our loves to have you bridging it.
Is that a setup for a sequel where I come back?
Exactly. This is
will that be on the 85th episode too?
Yeah, exactly.
We're teeing it up for that spin-off, the De Souza spin-off. So we've got so much to talk about. I don't know where to start, really. But while we'll be discussing Die Hard 5, this will also be a chat about the original film, the series as a whole, its legacy, and we wanted to really give the kind of last word on the subject to the original co-creator. One of the things I did want to ask you about, just to kind of kick things off in that spirit, you know, when we discussed Ricochet, for example, right, and the film which you wrote the screenplay for,
movie
a film
I
that
love.
we did a deep dive on, a film that we really love. We talked about the Valverde verse and how you may have been the originator of the whole concept of the extended cinematic universe. Could you talk to us a bit about that? Was that something that was conscious at the time, or did it just kind of happen organically?
It happened organically. I have to take you back to I think probably not your childhood. When your parents met. But like when I first started out, as a side effect, I periodically have interns come to me from the universities, and they come and work for me, and they work in my office. And invariably, sooner or later, an intern will say, "Mr. De Souza, can I ask you a question?" And I go, "Sure." He says, "How did you get started in the motion picture business?" And I say, "Well, like a lot of my peers, I started out in silent television." And what is disturbing is they go, "Oh, okay." They don't understand that that's a joke.
Right.
But
right.
back when I was working in silent television, not exactly. When I started out working in television and Universal Pictures, and this is like in the late 70s, I used to work, one of my first gigs was on the Bionic shows.
Mm-hmm.
This was the height of the Cold War, so invariably when it came, even when there were aliens, somehow the commies were involved, But
right.
Anyway, invariably we would do these Cold War stories, and we would have to have some kind of fake geopolitics. So Harv Bennett, who later on did the Star Trek movies and is a major player in television motion pictures, he said, when we would want to do an episode, and we'd say, we want to say the ambassador from Bolivia is actually a communist agent, but we couldn't say that because the ambassador from Bolivia would sue us.
Right.
We used to always make up these fake countries for different episodes.
Right, I see where we're going. Yep.
So one country I made up once was Lithuania.
Okay.
Like an Eastern Bloc country.
Sounds good, yeah. I buy it, yeah.
That sounds real, right? So I invented Lithuania, and that was an episode of Richard Jekyll, if you know the actor Richard Jekyll.
Yes.
He was a police officer who was a Lithuanian American, and he was being blackmailed to do some commie spy stuff because they had his wife as a hostage, So another country we made up for an episode was Valverde.
Okay.
It sounded like a tropical country.
Sure.
What was another one we had? Oh, my favorite one was for a Bionic Woman episode, which I called the Toluca. And the only reason I did that is there's a neighborhood in Los Angeles called Toluca Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which is kind of like there's some expensive homes around. I think it may have been a little pond that they engineered into a lake. Bob Hope had a house there. And there was an apartment building, a kind of impressive looking apartment building that was right in that neighborhood called the Tolucan Embassy. So it was one of my greatest in-jokes that I said we're calling this mythical country Toluca because we had a scene where Oscar says to Jamie Summers, you have to meet someone at the Tolucan Embassy. So
that's great.
It was a free location. It said Tolucan Embassy right on there.
Wow. Always the producer, right? You're always looking for those.
Right. So,
the right producer.
So anyway, we used Valverde for Commando, and then Joel recycled it for Predator, and then we used it again in Die Hard 2 as the country, the thinly disguised Panama, and then everybody else started using it. And Forbes magazine did an article called the Valverde verse, which we
talked about it. We talked about it on the episode about on Ricochet.
The DCU, forget the Marvel universe. The biggest Hollywood universe is the Valverde universe, because when you add it up, we already have Commando, Predator, Die Hard, and Die Hard 2, right? But then in Ricochet, we have repeated a character from Die Hard, Gail Wallens.
Yep.
And then once you have Predator in Valverde, all of the Predator sequels are also part of the Valverde universe. So by the time you add all these up, right, somebody said it's like, a $10 billion Valverde universe. Well, if only I'd copyrighted Valverde, I could have come on my private jet rather than you sending me
the company jet.
to see you.
Foreign military one.
But that's really funny that there was a Toluca Lake joke, because if you live in LA, you get it, right?
Yeah.
It's so
funny.
The
number of people that got that. I'm trying to think of another I had some other. It'll come to me. I'm in a senior moment here, but there was another thing that I put in the movie once that was super obscure, and somebody finally got it like 20 years later. It'll come to me. But anyhow, I will amend you though. Say before the DC universe and before the Marvel universe, I was like recently flipping the channel, and there's these channels that have these old shows that play. You know, like they're aimed at boomers, like MeTV or whatever. Like they're fast channels. You know, where you got to endure the commercials. So I was watching reruns. There was a show called Maverick, James Garner was on, which was a very unusual program, and it was a comedy western. And they used to do parodies of the other westerns. So, for example, they did an episode that was a parody of Bonanza, and it was instead of the Cartwright family, it was the Wheelwright family, and instead of Hoss and Little Joe, it was Moose and Small Paul. You know, they did a parody of Gunsmoke, where the marshal was like almost like Dirty Harry. He was like killing people left and right. So anyway, I'm watching this, and I suddenly realized that Warner Brothers had, back in the late 50s, early 60s, like 80% of everything on television was a Western. And so I only realized now, as an adult, that they did crossovers all the time. Oh. So the original shared universe was actually Maverick, Colt 45, Sugarfoot, Cheyenne, and at least one other Western title where they would cross over, and they would also do a nod, nod, wink, wink. Like at one point, one of the Maverick brothers was desperate for help, and he was riding from town to town, to get help. And and they had just canceled Colt 45, so when he went to that town, they had a sign on the sheriff's office closed for remodeling. So it's like that's a very inside Hollywood joke. So anyway, the shared universes probably go back at least to like 1959.
Well, we're getting an education here, and the origins of
the Warner Brothers shared Western universe.
Amazing.
That's interesting.
And of course, Die Hard has a lot of Western references. But my next question I want to ask you, one of the things we always talk about, and one of the things I'd like to frame today's episode with, is about sort of what makes a good sequel versus a bad sequel. And how you having worked on Die Hard 2, which I think is one of the best examples, and now we're talking about Die Hard 5.
But I wanted to do on that. Siskel and Ebert, the famous critics. Okay, Roger Ebert put thumbs down on Die Hard.
Huh?
Yeah,
it's online. You could find it.
I remember
that.
It's
a stupid plot. Everybody's an idiot. So forth. And the other guy says, "What are you out of your mind?" Anyway, he liked Die Hard 2 better.
I remember that.
So I get okay. So that was nice.
Well, we love Die Hard 2. We did a real deep dive on it, and I wanted to ask you though, because I gather that you couldn't work on Die Hard with a Vengeance because of contractual commitments with Paramount for Beverly Hills Cop 3. If I don't know if that's correct.
That's correct.
But wanted to ask you then was like, having been you originated this series. Obviously, there's other people involved, but you're integral to the process. You do Die Hard. You do Die Hard 2. You were going to do Die Hard 3. How do you feel when someone else kind of takes the baton? Do you care? Do you go in with your arms folded? Do you go in like excited? And did you actually see this film or the other Die Hard sequels like when they came out? Like, how do you feel about that?
I saw I saw Die Hard with a Vengeance when it came out because I'm fronting with John McClane and I wanted to see what he did. I know he didn't want to do the second one, and I know later he regretted that he didn't do it, which is why he came on board the third one. I saw the fourth one, and I saw the fifth one as homework for this call. I saw it literally.
You've never seen it. You've never seen it. Interesting.
No,
okay.
no. They had clearly sort of half jumped the shark in the fourth one.
Yeah. Okay.
I can explain what where I think they went wrong, but this one was like they jumped the orca. With this one, so I avoided seeing it till I rolled out of bed at 7:30 this morning in order to get this one under my belt. So,
thank you for doing
Well, we apologize and also thank you for doing.
Well, what did you feel about Die Hard 4? Because this is what to this question, what makes a good sequel versus a bad sequel? Why did Die Hard 2 work like gangbusters, and where did the series for you as the creator, as the co-creator of all of this? Where did it start to? Could you pinpoint? We have our own opinions, but I want to hear from you where it started to drift.
All right, if I have to define what a Die Hard movie is, and what a good Die Hard-esque movie is, like say Air Force One, say for example, which is a good one. I'm going to get lost in the weeds here. You have to remember here, I'm probably the only filmmaker who makes popcorn movies who has been a regular contributor to Sight and Sound magazine.
Mm-hmm.
I actually started out as a critic in my native Philadelphia, so I can do a deep dive into analytics and things. So what makes Die Hard work, and subsequent Die Hard-esque films, including the second one, is it's an Aristotelian unity of time, place, and action. Number one. So if you think about it, the first Die Hard movie takes place from dusk to dawn.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very compressed time, all in one location, all the action is there. The second picture also takes place in a similar period of about a dozen hours. The next thing that happens that seems to make it work is he is not supposed to be there.
Mm.
He's not like the franchised hero where they say, here's your mission, right? He's an underdog, and he's caught between the Scylla and Carbides of both the authorities and the villains. Neither one wants him there.
Mm.
And he has virtually no help, or any help he has is at arm's length and kind of marginal. So by that token, the first two movies fit that paradigm. The third picture is no longer has the unity of time and space, in that he's wandering all over Manhattan, and in the end he goes to Canada. He also has the police helping him.
Did you like the third one or no?
Well, I thought it was a well-made movie, but I realized it was a generic action movie.
Okay.
What's crazy about it is about 18 months before that movie came out, I wrote a comedy article for Premiere Magazine about how movie budgets go out of control. And as the hypothetical pretend movie, and we had like fake script pages, and we had a photograph of like, the bulletin board of the production office with like stuff on it, like, location scouting, all kinds of fake artifacts, as if this movie really existed. And it was an imaginary crossover between Beverly Hills Cop and Die Hard. And it was about a mad bomber, right, who had an agenda against Eddie Murphy and Bruce Willis. So what was funny about that is that when at Die Hard 3, I go, wait a minute, they have Sam Jackson in the Eddie Murphy role. This is the fake movie, Which,
and of course, you were working on Beverly Hills Cop 3 at the time, as well as and being offered to do the third Die Hard film. So very weird.
That was like I crossed over into an alternate universe or something, when I saw that. So anyway, Die Hard 3, in my opinion, it's no longer the unity of time, place, and action. The authorities are helping him, right? So you lose points for that. By the time you get to the fourth movie, he's not only running all over Manhattan, he's all over the East Coast, and he has the police and the CIA and the FBI helping him. Plus, he's got a sidekick who's a computer expert. So that's the fourth one. And now the fifth one, don't get me started. He's like in Russia. And in the first movie, we established some things. He's a technophobe. He's scared of heights, and he's scared to fly. All those things are out the window by the time you get to the fourth and fifth movie, and he's no longer fearsome. One of the things that made the first two movies work is he shows fear. And one of the things I talked to Bruce about when we first started on the first movie was about how important it was to be scared. And I remarked upon him, this is kind of before everything was on YouTube, but I said, you should take a look, get the VHS of the Maltese Falcon. And there's a scene in that movie where Bogart has his first meeting with Greenstreet and the other guys, and he says, listen, if you think you can buy me, you're wrong. You're messing with the wrong person. Whatever. He gives a real tough speech, and he says in 1930s approved dialogue, fuck y'all, and he goes out. But the minute he steps out of the room and they can't see him, he takes a deep breath and he looks at his hand, and his hand is shaking.
Yep.
And they go, whoa. You're like, So Bruce said, I checked that out. That's the way to go. And again, the famous story, the movie was offered to all the obvious suspects first.
Yep.
And James Caan, wonderful guy, I miss them all, but he would say to me years later, he'd say, what was I thinking? Why did I turn it down? But what everybody was thinking at that time, and you got to remember this is 1988, is that prior to that, there had been these action movies in which I was responsible, making these movies with Arnold and people of that ilk.
Yeah, you kind of create the paradigm before and after.
Where the hero is this ripped giant, implacable force. So the typical action movie of the 80s could be encapsulated in Rambo, where the commies, it's always commies, at that time, the commies have Sly, and they strap him to a mattress which has had all the ticking removed, so it's just the springs. And then they put electrodes on it, and they're shocking him. And then he breaks free. He kills everybody in the room. Then he finds a microphone. He grabs the microphone and says, "Hey, you other commies who are off camera in this scene, I'm coming to kill you next." So that's what you expected of the action hero.
Right.
So when the script went out to Sly and to Arnold and to Richard Gere,
You got pretty close with Gere, right? I gather.
I don't know that.
Joel Silver really wanted him, I think.
Oh, I don't know. And then they went to Burt Reynolds because he had a long relationship with Larry Gordon and Jimmy Caan. And there's some other names that I've heard it was offered to. And their reaction was reading the script, and they go, well, the guy doesn't have any action, and he spends the first 25 pages hiding and trying to call the police. This guy's a pussy.
Yeah.
And that's why they walked away from it. And it ended up being a blessing, in disguise for the movie, and I think for subsequent action films, because I don't think if you hadn't had Bruce Willis as a normal-looking person, not like a gym rat, I don't think you would ever have had Keanu Reeves.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
In Speed, and then you would have had Keanu Reeves in John Wick, because because in other words, the whole point of John Wick is that he doesn't look that scary. Like when they mess with him at the gas station, like they think they can mess with him. He's like a regular looking guy. So I think that movie opened the door for a new kind of hero in these kind of movies.
100%.
Well, we dedicated a whole podcast to exploring that theory and completely agree. And I have a follow-up question about that. We could talk to you all day about this stuff. I'm just going to get some fast facts on the board for this film, and then we'll move into a subsequent session where we can let you cook on this stuff in more detail, because you're teeing up some fascinating threads. This film, in particular, Good Day to Die Hard, was directed by John Moore, written by Skip Woods, based on characters created by Roderick Thorpe, and of course, yourself and Jeb Stewart. Produced by Alex Young and Wick Godfrey. It stars Bruce Willis, Jai Courtney, Sebastian Koch. Distributed by 20th Century Fox on February 14th, 2013. Take your wife, take your girlfriend to your Die Hard movie on Valentine's Day. That's what I would do against her.
What was the rating on this by chance?
Now, that is a good question, because I don't have that in front of me, but I remember this being a debate, because I think whether it was PG-13 or not. I think it was an R.
It's an R. They went back to R.
It's almost like they make it an R by being gratuitous. I mean, there's also with the violence of the ending, and it almost feels like gratuitous swearing in this film. But I'm pretty sure it is an R. The budget, $92 million, and the box office actually was successful, $304.7 million. Not as profitable as some of the other Die Hard sequels. Now, the next section that we do, to your point about like the influence of the character and the influence of the premise, is a section called Die Hard DNA, where we examine forensically, like how what exactly those influences were and how they took shape. For this film, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's pretty obvious. I'm sorry. Did you? I don't know if you want to do it one last time, Liam, because I cut you off.
DNA,
okay.
yeah.
So, obviously, this is a direct sequel to Die Hard 4, aka Live Free or Die Hard. It features the returning characters of John McClane, his son Jack McClane, and his daughter Lucy McClane. There are several visual homages to the original film and previous films with sequences that involve things like people jumping off buildings, exploding helicopters, villains falling off tall buildings in slow motion, which happens at the end. The score by Marco Beltrami also weaves in some subtle references to Michael Kamen's original score and to Beethoven's Ode to Joy.
Not quite subtle. I was all through the movie.
And yet, this just doesn't feel like a Die Hard film. And we're kind of going to examine why after this quick break. And we're back with our main section of the show, Anatomy of an Action Movie, where we explore the tenets of an action motion picture, starting with the premise of the movie. So I'm going to just lay the table here, and then I'm going to let our esteemed guest Cook on his forensic examination of this film, what does and doesn't work. And I suspect it's going to be more of the latter. But first of all, let me just explain for anyone uninitiated exactly what the plot is. And literally by doing this, by saying what the premise is, it already illustrates, I think, the problem. So, aging New York cop John McClane travels to Russia in search of his estranged son Jack, played by Courtenay, only to discover that Jack is entangled with a complex espionage plot wherein corrupt politician Viktor Chagarin, played by Sergei Koslesnikov, plans to railroad imprisoned billionaire and whistleblower Yuri Komarov, played by Sebastian Koch, in a rigged trial unless Komarov turns over a mysterious file. When Komarov refuses to give up said file, the courthouse is attacked and blown up by well-armed mercenaries. Jack escapes with Komarov in tow, only to encounter his dad, John McClane himself, during the apparent extraction attempt, which is soon revealed to be a clandestine CIA op. With that delicate operation now in jeopardy, father and son must team up to fight the bad guys who are after them all, working through their estrangement issues in the process. So immediately you see how unwieldy and, sort of completely...
Not Aristotelian, let's say, at the very least.
I'd written down, to Stephen's point, if every previous Die Hard film, I think, could be summarized in one sentence, right? And we know basically what they are, so I won't repeat them all, but, starting with essentially, they all have... John is in such and such a situation in a box and usually has to rescue somebody or save somebody in a compressed timeline. Even up to the fourth one where it's Lucy McClane getting caught up in the terrorist plot. People are split on that movie. I think it has its merits. But by this one, it's John goes to Russia to visit his estranged son, Jack, only to find Jack is involved in this complex espionage plot, and they team up to take down the bad guys, kinda. It felt to me like another movie was happening that John McClane was running to catch up to, and couldn't, was like, oh, hey, I'm here too. And he was not central to the thrust of the whole thing. So, yeah, I'd love to just frame your analysis of it, Stephen, by what makes a good sequel, what makes a bad sequel, anything you want to say about where this is, what your general feelings, macro, micro, were about this installment and where the franchise has gone.
Well, let me back up and say, my own thought process in doing the first sequel. As a film goer, I've seen many movies, and I've seen followed series, James Bond, so I saw all of them starting when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. The ones that work, the ones that don't work. The argument for a sequel is you want it to be you want to deliver on what the first movie did without being a carbon copy. So, although my name is on the 48-hour sequel, I had nothing to do with it.
Oh, okay.
It was original screenplay, so it said characters created by. But to me, that is a very poor sequel because they basically just did the same movie over again.
That's a good point.
With the added wrinkle that a good guy cop from the first movie was a traitor. Spoiler alert if anybody hasn't seen the movie. And also, it was 10 years later. I think that's a problem, too, when you go that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my feeling is, let me back up here. A few years ago, a friend of mine who is an instructor at the American Film Institute said, listen, are you free on Monday? Can you come by AFI? And you go, why? He says, well, one of my students is doing a thesis on you, and with a project slideshow or video clips, and it may amuse you. I go, oh, what the hell? He said, but come in late and come in the back because you may spook him and make him choke if he sees you there. So I'm sitting there, and he puts up the title, and it says, Stephen De Souza, Misdirected Expectations. And then he goes on and says, if you analyze Stephen De Souza's scripts, you will see that on a macro level, on a micro level, he leads the audience to think one thing is going to happen and then does something that is similar but takes a radical turn. And so this makes the audience feel that they are a participant in it and that they are on the same wavelength, and then they have the pleasure of being surprised. So now I go, man, I should start taking notes here. and then I realized that again, I started as a film critic, and I had always remembered, I had never articulated this in my own, I don't sit down when I go, this is in my mind, but I long ago remember a Buster Keaton quote where he said what he does is he leads the audience down the garden path and then he tricks them. Which is exactly the same thing. And also the best Warner Brothers cartoons, Tex Avery and all those guys, Tex Avery and who's the other guy? Chuck Jones. If you look at the best Warner Brothers cartoons, is they lead you to think something's going to happen as a gag, and then they flip it, you know? So it's a tried and true trick. So this is something that I am consciously doing. So when I got to the Die Hard sequel, I go, okay, the audience is expecting something like the first movie. How can I mislead them and still deliver some fun? So this is the way I thought. I said, all right, in the first movie, the villains were foreigners, all evil foreigners. If you want to get too deep, it was the former adversaries of World War II. They were mostly, you know, they were German and Japanese, with a few exceptions. So I said, okay, this one, it should be domestic, right? Just to freshen it up. They are expecting to have a replication of a sympathetic cop, right, and federal troublemakers that aren't. So how can I play with that? So the other thing I felt was very important in the first movie, the greatest compliment I got, and I got it from a lot of people on the first movie, even at the very first screening, where they said, I thought Bruce was going to die.
Yeah.
And back in the day, the heroes would die in movies. Frank Sinatra, Ron Ryan's Express. He breaks prisoners of war out of a prisoner of war camp, and he dies. Spoiler alert. Paul Newman would die in movies, right? John Wayne died in a movie or two. So somehow we got to this, what do you call plot armor, you know, that's been on too many movies, where you never worry about the hero. So the fact that Bruce people thought he would die was the greatest compliment he could get, but now when you do the sequel, he has plot armor. So one of the reasons that I had a plane crash and Bruce tried to stop the plane crash was to make him vulnerable and again. And that's why after the plane crash, he's like broken and he's crying, right? He's all beat up and bleeding to get him back to being imperfect, to like try and get that, the fear that he is imperfect.
Because he fails, he can't stop it. Yeah.
But that's why that was there. A funny story about that, okay? The studio was so concerned that the audience would turn on us and walk out of the theater when we crash a plane of innocent people that they made us shoot another take. You know, these models are like, like 18 feet long. These airplanes. That's why there's only one CGI shot in that movie at the end, not AI, please, but where you see the planes on the runway.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's all model work,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
looks much more real. But they made us do a take where we had to. I remember we made up all these fake airlines, like Windsor Airline instead of like British, instead of British Air, and Shamrock Airlines instead of Aer Lingus, So we had a fake UPS. It was like APS, American Parcel Service, and we filmed a sequence where we crashed a United Parcel plane, and we filmed an alternate take in the tower where they said both the pilot and co-pilot are dead. So only 2 people died.
Yeah.
But then we tested the movie with killing everybody, and the audience was shocked, but they didn't walk out.
Mm-hmm. They were only British, so who cares, right?
No, but it makes the audience hate the bad guys even more. Yeah. That's the purpose of it.
It's so harrowing.
The stakes.
It's such a harrowing sequence.
It was even more harrowing because it was so evil. You remember there's a litlittle girl on the plane?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And they put the seatbelt on the little girl. We also put the seatbelt on the teddy bear.
Oh,
right,
Stephen.
You really twisted the knife. And so the studio made us cut out milking the little girl.
Yeah,
and the teddy bear. But we do find the teddy bear. I think the little girl is just glimpsed in passing. I'm not sure I'm not sure. I can't remember. I'm not like Miss Haversham. I don't watch these movies keep watching the movies over and over again. But
you see her play with that teddy bear. I remember. Yeah, it's a traumatizing event for me. That scene.
Teddy bear on the ground. So that was how nervous they were about that. But that plane crash, we killed all those imaginary people in order to get Bruce vulnerable and feeling like a failure, like he was overwhelmed. But the rest of the mindfuck, if I can say that on your podcast,
sure, yeah,
to the audience was we introduced the local cop to be a foil for him. So you'd think he was like Dwayne Johnson in the first movie. Right.
You're talking about the Dennis Franz character? Yeah.
He was there to convince you he was going to be the Dwayne Johnson, the Breakfast Club guy.
Yeah.
Right. Again. And we brought in the federal forces to make you think that they were again going to be, and then we flipped it.
So good.
And then there's a moment in the movie where John Amos says, "Sergeant, get this asshole out of Mr. McClane's face." And he says, "I thought you were an asshole." "No, I'm your kind of asshole." So now we completely confuse the audience, as to which way it was going. And I would say one of the greatest, mind blowers in the movie is when they're all talking on the plane, on the vehicle, going out to supposedly intercept the villains, and they're talking about previous missions. And the young radio operator says, "Well, I wish I was with you guys. I wish I was in this unit before." And he says, "So do we. Then we wouldn't have to do this." And he cuts his throat.
Yeah.
But if you pay attention, not that I watched the movie more than once, but if you pay attention, earlier in the movie, when they come in, before you know they're in on the conspiracy, someone says, "We have a little problem. Our radio operator's appendix broke. We've got a replacement." And he goes, "Ugh, we'll deal with that later." Meaning there's a guy on our team who's not on board the conspiracy. So we played totally fair, and this was kind of rope-a-dope to where you think the movie's going in this one way, and it's not going that way at all, which is why we did the whole thing with the ammunition and the magazines with the red tape and the blue tape and all that stuff. This is all part of a clever, diabolical plan to have anybody who saw the first movie make all the wrong conclusions.
Yeah.
So... And in where we decided what were the high points of the first movie that the audience would like to see again, everybody remembers the scene, and obviously the filmmakers of this last movie remember the scene in the computer room where they shoot the glass, right? So looking for something like that, we did the cockpit scene. And to show you how different departments come together when everybody's firing all cylinders. If you watch the movie again, when the plane lands and Bruce and the guy says the the stand-in for Noriega says, freedom. And he says, not yet. And he punches him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the other guys come. By the way, I was desperate in this last movie looking for some kind of wisecrack or joke
Right,
or line
yeah.
like that.
Slim
I didn't
pickings.
hear a single one.
Mm-hmm.
There's one, which is I'm not getting Father of the Year. That feels like a McClane line, but it's
and maybe if there was an audience with me, like somebody would laugh and it would be contagious. But anyway, so then he locks himself in the cabin. Now, first off, cabin doors don't work that way. They flip, but nobody knows, right? So they lock him in. But if you pay attention to the color scheme in that film, when you're in the cockpit, everything is gray. There's no color. Mm-hmm. The only color in that entire scene is the axe that they block the door with, which has a red handle. And in the cockpit, every shot in the cockpit, somewhere in the cockpit, you see the red handle on the ejection seat. But we don't feature it, but it's there. Subconsciously, you're registering. So when I pitched this scene that before I was writing, I said, and then they throw 15 hand grenades in, and then what? And I said, you have to wait till I turn the script in. And nobody, the producer, director, nobody said, what? How are you gonna? I said, trust me, we'll get him out of there. So that was to take the shoot the glass scene, but take it up a notch. Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't think anybody would see the movie and go, oh, that's the shoot the glass scene again. It doesn't read that way, but the idea that you're trapped and there's no way out. Now, in the original picture, he ended up like running for his life, and he got cut up on the glass. Here, he used the ejection seat to get out, which, if you saw it with an audience, they went crazy, because the reason they went crazy is everybody in the audience said, I knew he was going to do that, because once he looked down and saw the red handle, everybody subconsciously realized they had noticed the red handle earlier. They didn't know what it was. It was in the corner of a shot. It was out of focus. But if you see the movie again, you'll see how frequently the ejection seat handle is in the movie, even though you don't know that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's why the audience gets a tremendous roar. Here's what I compare it to, if you do it right. When a band does a new tour, like Steely Dan does their 85th farewell tour, whatever. When you go to see a concert, when the band or the singer starts to play one of their hits, the audience starts to cheer when they hear the first couple of notes. They're applauding themselves for recognizing the tune. Mm-hmm. There used to be a quiz show in America called Name That Tune. Maybe you had it in the UK as well, where they would play a couple of notes and you had to guess the song, and you got more money the quicker you guessed it. If they played the whole chorus, you didn't get anything. So this is an element. So again, I feel I'm playing mental chess with the audience on the Die Hard 2 sequel, saying you expect this, I'm going to do that. The Buster Keaton method. You think this is going to happen, but that happens. So that's what I think makes a well-delivered sequel. You deliver a lot of the things that you expect, but in a fresh way. And the best Bond movies have a good villain and a good Bond. We know there's the good villain, there's the Bond girl, there's the giant conspiracy, there's the deadly traps we're leaving, that Bond is left behind, you're going to die. There's the gadgets and gizmos, but they try to freshen the gadgets and gizmos up in each case. And many years went by before they brought back the car. The famous, it wasn't until like the Daniel Craig movie,
the Skyfall. Yeah, they bring it back
it was a delight to see it come back. So the trick is to not do a carbon copy, but to have a Venn diagram, I guess, that overlaps a little bit.
Yeah. What I love as well about that scene, the one that you're describing in Die Hard 2, where the grenades are being thrown into it, we've talked a lot about this idea that Die Hard is a guy in a box. And that's almost like the entire series in microcosm. It's like he is in a box, trapped in an impossible situation, and has to use both his intelligence and courage to get out of a seemingly impossible situation in a way that is so spectacular and so uplifting for the audience. So it is I love what you're saying, because this is the stuff that we've spent a lot of time talking about, with that these things don't happen or just not just slapped together. That level of thought has to go into
No, it's
these
construction.
things.
Motion pictures, screenplays are, are architectural.
Right.
So with this movie, then, what as a plot, I find it. I mean, it just feels. I want to give you a bit of a chance to sort of. Liam's very hot on his political analysis and knows a lot about. It's interesting what you say. This versions of the commies and the Valverde and everything are these now the new wave of that. Are these sort of Russian gangsters, which this film explores, or Russian oligarchs, or Russian kind of corruption? What do you think about this whole, like, Liam? Like, you seemed a little softer on this film maybe than I was.
Well,
what did it do for you in terms of like exploring that milieu as the villains of a die-hard film?
I mean, I love movies about Russians fighting Americans. Like, it's just because I grew up with those kinds of movies, So immediately I'm thinking, certainly not quality-wise, but I'm thinking about The Hunt for Red October. I'm thinking about the beginning of The Jackal, Bruce's older film that he made. And,
yeah,
I think
Air Force One as well. As
Air Force One, which is one of the best die-hard, sort of...
always goes back to the Russians.
And
this one's weird.
And this one's weird. And I think... So... Two things. One, I'm sort of intrigued by the idea that John McClane is trying to catch up with the movie a little bit. Like, I like that as an idea that his son's like, I don't need you, Dad. You're slowing me down. But, of course, that can't be ultimately what the movie is because it's Die Hard and it's about John McClane. So John McClane has to ultimately save the day. I don't think it's a particularly good movie, but I am really... I don't think it's a very good movie, but I am very intrigued by kind of the way that it references the original movie. And Stephen, I had a question for you because one of my favorite things about Die Hard, frankly, is how politically sophisticated it is. And the fact that you think, oh, these are like, guys who are calling for the release of these, Asian Dawn or whatever the case is. And of course, it's a smokescreen. What's so interesting to me about this movie is this movie almost does the opposite, where you think Sebastian Koch is going to be like a Alexander Navalny, like he's going to be a Russian freedom fighter, and then you find out, oh, he's just as ruthless and capitalistic as these other guys, and they're all gangsters. Like, did that work for you watching the movie? It kind of inverts what you did.
I had the opposite reaction.
Okay.
When I looked at this movie, I'm seeing this is the fifth movie, and they're running out of ideas. Mm-hmm. And I really felt that they went and they watched the first movie again and made notes. And whereas I looked at the first movie and said, how can I not duplicate myself?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? Okay, foreign bad guys, domestic bad guys. And I said, make them vulnerable again, crash the plane. Everything I did was designed to recapture the emotion of the first movie with a different paintbrush, to make a twisted analogy. Here I see a movie where they took notes and they said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. So in the first Die Hard movie, they pretend that they are terrorists so that the good guys will do this, but actually they have a secret agenda. Mm-hmm. Same thing here. Mm-hmm. They are pretending that the villain is pretending that there is a key and there's a file and they really want to steal the nukes. Mm-hmm. So to me it was, and they saw the first movie and said, oh, that scene where they shoot the glass, let's do that, only we'll do it backwards.
Right.
Where Bruce Willis shoots the glass.
Right.
To rain glass on the bad guys.
Yeah.
We have a helicopter crash into the building and explode. We can do that too.
Right. You're right. Yeah.
We had do a high fall off a building to kill the main bad guy. We can do that too.
But this time he gets chopped up by the rotor blade.
Except, by the way, you talk about the rating. I see a lot of post-production second thoughts. I believe that the first cut of this movie probably got an X rating, and they had to take it back a notch because they cut away from the guy being sliced up by the rotor blades. I mean, in the last Boy Scout, they really did it.
Right. I was going to bring that up.
We're
in a highly enlightened position. Milo's death in Last Boy Scout.
That they were waffling between PG and R. And if you notice in the movie, a couple of times he almost says motherfucker, but he doesn't say it. earlier on, and he finally says it at the end, because that alone will get you an R rating. So I really feel, and the fact that Lucy McClane was in the trailer and she's in the credits, but she's not in the movie I saw, unless they took her out in the extended edition. I don't know what the
So
extended.
I watched the theatrical cut, and she's in the bookend of both. She bookends the film. She takes him to the airport, then she picks him up at an airfield at the end. So there's two different versions out.
So
there.
in the extended version ended in Russia, unless I didn't stick.
It did, yeah. So I watched the first. This is a weird construction, but I watched the first half of the extended edition, and then ended up watching the second half because I had to watch it on streaming instead of the Blu-ray. I had to watch the second half as the theatrical, and she's in the theatrical cut at the very end of the movie. She picks them both up. It doesn't. In my opinion, it doesn't work very well. I actually prefer the ending of them just still being in Russia a little bit. It just feels a little more like grounded, but it's 4 minutes longer, and the additions that I noticed in the rewatch are not significant. It's just like slightly more padded.
Well, anyway, to my eye and in my experience, I saw them like pulling back from some violence, and the one gratuitous motherfucker, after almost saying it several times earlier, seemed to me that they said, we need the R rating. We lost the audience in the last one. Let's go for the R rating. Let's put in the one motherfucker. This is not related, but on Street Fighter, where I started out working in network television, and the original shows I did were all family friendly, 8 o'clock television. That's like totally PG. So I know how to do that. I know how to write that, and I certainly know how to produce and direct that kind of material. But right before Street Fighter went in to be rated, there was an attempted school shooting or something that had made. If you've ever seen the movie, this movie is not yet rated, where they went behind the curtain and you have kind of random civilians. So they rated, they gave Street Fighter an R rating. So the studio panicked because you can't advertise the audio. The children were playing the video game, right? And you can't, and there were toys, and you can't advertise an R-rated movie on Saturday mornings when kids are watching. You can't have a toy deal. So they're in a panic. So we ended up recutting the movie and making the fights all softer. So I've done some animation. I did an animated show, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, for CBS. And in animation, when you have violence, the hero's going to punch the bad guy. You see the hero pull his fist back, and you cut to a tree, and you hear an offstage whack, and the bad guy rolls into the shot. You're not allowed to show the punch hit, right? So we started doing that to Street Fighter, right? To like get off the R rating, right? So now any blood came out, more violent hits had to come out. It got softer and softer, and they still rated it R. So now we cut it again, and now they sent it back to us, and it was rated G. And now the studio's in a new panic because PG-13 is the sweet spot for that movie, because you want the teenagers to go, and you want the little brothers and sisters to say, "Can I go to the movies, Mommy, with my older brother?" So now they say, "Oh my God, we're screwed, and we can't submit it again."
Oy.
We've had 3 shots at it. I said, "Don't worry about it." So I had Van Damme come in to the studio right before we locked negative, and I had him do a wild line when he's sneaking into the bad guy's headquarters, where he says, "I'm getting too old for this shit." So we turn the movie in, and sure enough, they say, "What are you guys trying to pull? This is not the version we gave a G rating to." "Well, let's guess what, motherfuckers? You're getting a PG-13. And we go, "Oh no, we have a PG." So anyway, to me, watching this movie, I really felt that they were waffling between PG-13 and R, and they decided, let's go for the R. And then all of a sudden, at the end, we had this curse word, the curse word that will get you an R, but there really isn't a lot of gore. If you look at this movie, there's very little blood in this movie.
Yeah, you're right.
The whole thing is a bit sort of sort of it speaks to, I think that it's just a very confused, like the concept is just confused, like it's just not a clean pitchable idea, unless there was a couple of things. There's a couple of interesting historical things about this. One, there was a rumor that it was going to be called Die Hard 24/7 and that they were going to try and merge it with Jack Bauer from the 24 series. Now that sounds kind of crazy, but they were both Fox properties. Yeah. It was a hit. He dealt Russian bad guys. You could see someone floating that idea.
Yeah, why not?
Right? Although ultimately they pulled back from that. But you can maybe see the seeds of that exploration. Then there's this idea that feels to me what they were trying to do, and they've never admitted this. In fact, they've flat out denied it. But to me, it's really obvious. They're trying to set this up as a baton handoff so they can spin it off for John McClane Jr.
Yes.
And everybody just kind of went, no thanks.
That's one of the last lines of the movie. He refers to himself as John McClane Jr.
And I want to bring this into our hero section and ask you this question. I've been dying to ask you this, Stephen. You mentioned before, like they went for basically every single actor, male leading man around. They all said, and you've listed many of them, and there's even more apparently if legend is to be believed. But unlike other iconic action heroes, from, say, the comic book world or James Bond that you mentioned, right? James Bond or Batman or Superman. No one else on the planet can play John McClane except Bruce Willis. Why?
I think it was his everyman underdog character and his general appearance. He's just a normal-looking guy. We leaned, again, I would back up here. When I met Alan Rickman, right, I said, let's lean into this and emphasize the point spread between this blue-collar American and this snotty Brit and accentuate it. And this is where it's interesting because in the source novel, the character, first of all, in the source novel, the character is 65 years old. He's retired from the police department.
Joe Leland,
you know
right?
the story. We had to offer it to Frank Sinatra first. You know that, right?
Yep.
And he said, I'm too old and too rich. And it's a good thing because the chase scenes would have been on a rascal scooter in the building.
Yeah.
But more interesting is the character was a retired police captain. He was college educated and had been, remember, this book is published in the 60s, late 60s, I think. The first book is in the 60s.
The Detective. And then, Nothing Lasts Forever, I think, is mid-70s,
an Army
late 70s.
intelligence officer in World War II and had, in fact, interrogated Gruber's father at Stanhow Prison.
Wow.
The father was a big Nazi. So the character in the book is a much more sophisticated, erudite counterintelligence officer before he's a police officer. So once we had Rickman, I said, we got to throw all that out and push the hero in the opposite direction. And that made for much more friction than if they had been, two peas from the same pod, so to speak.
There's a shot of Bruce in this movie. I think it's towards the beginning of the movie where he's just sort of standing. It's before he goes to Russia because there's that ridiculous bit when he appears to be just walking through a riot on the streets of Russia. But and it has that feeling of it again. You're like, oh, that's Bruce Willis. He's the everyman. Like before the action kicks into
They even
gear.
did the taxi ride. Like
Yeah.
the first movie. I'm telling you, it's like it's by the numbers. And by the way, if you see the trailer, there's more dialogue. He says, you're a cop. There was obviously a longer scene in the cab that got tightened up. And instead of playing, and again, they sing it, instead of playing music in the first car, the guy sings in the cab. It's almost like they said, well, we're not going to play Christmas music on the radio, but we can sing in the cab.
Yeah.
A funny cab driver.
It's just, but it just doesn't, it doesn't work. But here's the question I want to ask you.
It's Timu Die Hard.
So the villain, you talk about the villain and you say, okay, so one of the reasons why the original film worked so well is because and you changed it dramatically from the source material in both directions with the hero and the villain who were painted quite differently in Nothing Lasts Forever. And the two things have a symbiotic relationship, right? You know, the hero and the villain have to be contrast. When we did the Die Hard 2 episode, I went crazy for my love for William Sadler's performance in that movie. I think he's amazing. I'm a huge fan of his. I think it's an amazing performance. But it was so the opposite of Gruber. I'm really interested in your thoughts about like how to create, because I think this film failed. I think these are all very good actors playing pretty limp villains, pretty unmemorable villains. Like they're good actors, but they're just not. These characters don't like punch through. You can barely remember them when the film's over.
Yeah, yeah.
The actors are very good.
Another thing is,
how do you make a great villain, Stephen?
Well, first off, I want to give some Hollywood like old school writers jargon. One of my first mentors I worked with was Don Mankiewicz, who was an Academy Award-winning writer in his own right. His father wrote Citizen Kane, so there's a lot of, Academy Française, one handshake away from greatness, having worked under this guy. And one of the things he taught me was about the pecking order of villains. That there's the villain who in a Western would either own the casino. This is actually what he said to me. You have the villain who in a Western would either own the casino or he's a railroad or he's bringing the railroad to town. Then you have the heavy, who is the physical danger, who works for the villain. And then you have an assortment of dog heavies. And I go, why are they called dog heavies? He says, because the villain would shoot the sheriff, the heavy would kill the deputy, and the dog heavy would like push an old lady off the sidewalk and kick a dog.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's important, Stephen, that we meet all these villains early on in the movie so we can fall in hate with them. And you have to kill them in reverse pecking order.
So good.
Right?
So good.
So if you look at Die Hard, you can see you meet all the villains. You get to know them all, and they get killed in kind of reverse pecking order. You work your way up to the main guy.
Yeah.
Now, if I erred in one place, there's two things that bother me about Die Hard 2. One thing was, which was not in the script, which I thought was, when I saw it in the dailies, it bothered me, where when Sadler says, "Don't fail me again," but he puts a gun to his guy's head. And I go, oh, I hate that. I hated that. Because I don't understand how the guy has this level of loyalty to go to this mission, and all through the rest of the picture, he gives them pep talks and is encouraging. I just thought that was a very strange moment that Rennie put in the movie and had Sadler do. It bothered me.
Okay. And
the other thing, which came down to my own fault, I thought I was killing the bad guys in reverse pecking order, and I was, if you go through the hierarchy. But when I saw the movie, the audience went much more crazy when Bruce killed John Amos, who was the number 2 villain. And they were less excited when Sadler died. And the reason was the audience trusted John Amos. John Amos had personally deceived the audience. The audience never trusted Sadler, but they had trusted John Amos. And so when he died, they really were glad because they took that personally.
Also killed by a propeller, just like, or a jet engine. Yeah. Right. So it's similar. Another comp with this movie with Die Hard 5, where again, they sort of go back to the of previous deaths. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but generally speaking, and going back to that again, talking about that, isn't it strange that now in this last movie, you don't meet all the villains at once? Like the guy with the tattoos comes in at the very end of the movie. A bare-shirted guy with tattoos comes at the very end.
Yeah.
They kill the guy called the Dancer. And by the way, what the hell was that he's dancing? Was that an Alexander Godunov thing?
Right.
Thought
occurred to us. Yeah.
Godunov was a dancer. Let's have this guy be a dancer. I mean, what was that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like a weird remix. It's like a bad remix of the original Die Hard, right?
And crucially, this movie has no Carl, which, like, to me, is one of the defining...
Well, I think that's what they wanted that dancer character to be. I thought he was like one of the more interesting actors in the film, actually.
And then he disappears for like a huge stretch.
And then they just kill him in like a really like cavalier
and again,
way.
This movie has all this traveling, you know, like in Die Hard 2. Once we tighten up the springs, it never lets go. The tension never lets up. I mean, when the tension lets up in Die Hard when he has a phone call talking to Al Powell and he's pulling a glass out of his feet. I mean, the tension, but that's
that's as light as it gets. Yeah.
In this movie, they're driving in the car and they're talking. There's these long gaps where it's quiet and nothing's happening.
Well, here's my biggest thing that I realized as well about like when I was sort of analyzing it from like a story engine perspective. I was like, you know what? At any point, they could both just walk away. Fuck it. Like there's no sense of like we have to get this done or X, Y's. Fuck it.
There's no ticking clock.
Who cares?
Yeah,
let him go.
Yes, the other
doesn't matter.
The other pictures have a ticking clock. This movie says that several years after this, if we fail in years to come, there could be nuclear blackmail.
It doesn't work.
You know
it doesn't work for a Die Hard film.
You know, it's like in Operation Hail Mary is a big successful movie right now.
Yes, yeah.
And they say, listen, if this mission fails, the world could end in 18 months. It's a different thing. Say if this mission fails, you know, the sun could burn out in a million years.
Yeah.
That's like an old joke. Like someone's falling, someone in astronomy class in college is saying, and our best expectations are that our sun will burn to a lump of coal in 100 billion years. And somebody in the back of the room says, holy shit, oh my God. And he says, what? He says, what? He says, oh, sorry. I thought you said 100 million.
That's Die Hard 5, like weirdly
like,
in a nutshell.
Yeah, you know, and like I said, we didn't get to fall in love with the villains. The villains, there's no pecking order. The number 2 villain disappears. They try to introduce they try to introduce a new villain with the tattoos at the end who comes out of nowhere while he's bare chested in Russia.
Must be freeze. I was thinking he must be freezing his nipples off. Like. Yeah. The next section that we like to talk about, we always, when we analyze a film, we always look at the premise, the hero, the villain, and then our last 2 sections we look at are the action and the humor. So I want to talk, you know, you've already talked about your approach to action with this amazing kind of mini masterclass you've just taught us about the grenade cockpit ejector seat scene in Die Hard 2. But this film, if there are merits to this film, and I would you know, we try and be fair about every film. I think it's very crisply shot. It's the same DP that went on to do John Wick and created that kind of very clean, shiny action aesthetic.
There's no doubt it's a good-looking movie.
It looks. I love the shots around the city that kind of zoom in on the action from high vantage points. I think there's some really dynamic stuff, but overall, I find that it's not memorable. And there's another turn of phrase that we talked about a few times that actually I first heard this from Chad Stahelski, and I've thought about it a lot since. This is an example of he said, you know, the John Wick series, which you referenced earlier, is heavy on story, light on plot. I would say this is the opposite in a bad way. It's like it's heavy on plot and light on story. The plot is so complex and convoluted, but there's actually only like 5 story beats in the movie. There's like 5 scenes in the movie. They go to the courthouse, they escape. There's a helicopter attack on the banquet hall. They go to Chernobyl. The end. Like that. There's actually very little in the way of story. So I'm just wondering, like, how did you feel about this as an action picture, and what has been your approach to, like, you've written some of the most iconic set pieces of all time. In other films, as well as, you know, in Commando and in Running Man and all these other, you know, you're a master of it. Do you think consciously about like creating memorable set pieces, or how does that process work for you? And how does this film succeed or fail on an action level?
Yeah, well, there's scenes and there's sequences, you know, and this movie was like had sequences but no scenes, I guess. You know, it's hard to say, and it was just like an assembly of Lego parts that sort of never came together into one spaceship. If I can have a twisted analysis.
Yeah. I get that.
And there were so many things that were, even in the context of the thing, a stretch of logic. Like, nobody has ever busted me on in Die Hard. People come up to you all the time and they'll say, how did he know that he was not a hostage? And people have all these theories. Well, he accepted a foreign cigarette. No American would accept a Galwal cigarette. Or it's the way he held the cigarette when he, But there's a whole story about what got cut out of the movie. Originally, when they all got off the truck in Die Hard, they hesitated at the back of the truck, and Alan Rickman said in German, "Gentlemen, synchronize your watches," which in German you could understand, synchronize them to timing or whatever. And there was a down shot, like from Lord of the Rings, where all the terrorists put their hands out and they clicked their watches. They all had the same Tag Heuer watch. And when Bruce has a conversation with Al Powell, and he says, "I think this is a professional crew. They all have the same weapons. The tags are all cut out of their clothing. They all have really good fake IDs. And they all have the same watch." Because he searched. You remember when he kills the first guy almost by accident to show how overmatched he was? And he takes the cigarettes, and that got a laugh because he looks around like he shouldn't steal cigarettes. And then he looked at the watch, and I saw the movie in multiple theaters, and also I saw it at the premiere in Paris. And everybody laughed when he looked at the watch like was going to steal the watch. But then the next guy he killed, he noticed the same watch. And that's why he says, so when he lit the cigarette for Alan Rickman, he saw the watch. There was even a close shot where Bruce's eyes went to the watch. That's how he knew. But this movie was written in front of the cameras. I was on the set all the time. Because we cast Bruce so late, it was always a scramble. So originally there was dialogue about how they're going to get away. And Joel Silver said, "I don't want to do one of these monologues. I hate that. Can we not do the monologue?" Because remember he says, if you steal $6,000, they forget, but 60 million, they'll hunt you to the ends of the earth, but not if they think you're dead. So then I had the brainstorm, which wasn't a brainstorm, it was a desperate recall of, I had done a TV movie of Will Eisner's The Spirit in 1986, where it was kind of cartoony like Batman, where the villain was so evil, she was going to blow up a children's hospital and escape in a fake ambulance. I said, let's do that again. That movie only played once on television. Subsequently, it came out on a DVD. So we don't have to have any dialogue at all. The minute Argyle sees, I forget the other guy's name.
Is it Theo? It's Theo who's stealing the ambulance, right?
Theo, in a paramedic uniform, go in the back of the truck and roll out of an ambulance. The audience understands, without any dialogue, what the getaway plan was.
Right.
And if you want to know how late that idea came, right, freeze frame it, and ambulance is misspelled. That's the last day of filming. And I was going to set, and I said, holy shit, ambulance is misspelled. What are we going to do? He said, it's the last day of shooting. If anybody knows, I said, we already have their money. They already bought their ticket. Who's going to notice? So I don't think, I have never noticed that. Seen anyone in the chat room bust me on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have the first cut of the movie. A handful of people are there. Just the key filmmakers are in the room. And we're running the movie with a temporary track. It still says shot missing. Some of the shots are black and white because it's like a work in progress back in the days when, before we had digital editing. And the minute they got off the truck and look at their watches, everybody in the screening room goes, oh hell. Oh, stop the film. And McTiernan says to the editor, get the scissors in there the minute you can, and also print that scene down as dark as possible so that nobody sees there's no ambulance in the back of the truck. Now, I've ruined the movie for everybody on the rewatch. When you get out of the truck, there's no ambulance there, but we got away with it. But that meant that all the references to them having the same watch had to come out. So anyway, people have always come up to me with some kind of cockamamie theory about how did Bruce there. But nobody's noticed the most preposterous thing in the movie that has no basis in reality whatsoever, which is there is a dedicated cable optic line between this building and Tokyo across the Pacific Ocean, which is preposterous.
I refuse to hear it. The film's perfect.
No, but I'm saying, like, you get away with the biggest lie of all.
Yeah.
This movie has a lie where they have this magical spray that neutralizes radiation.
Yeah. Compound 20.
It's interesting what an audience will and won't accept, isn't it?
Yeah. That's for So I'm noticing it right away. He says, "Bring in the XY7." What's that? This spray neutralizes radiation. We can now take off these. To explain, right? And then when they fell in the water, they said, "Oh, that's just rainwater," because actually the only water there would be the radioactive water. So they're doing a lot of plot armor and hand wavium, as we say.
That guy wearing no shirt in freezing cold Russia, anywhere in Russia is bad enough, but if he's doing it in Chernobyl, especially once the Chernobyl TV series came out, and we kind of understand like the real hard science of it. It's kind of, it makes it age even worse.
Very quickly, I have to just say to your point about no one's ever come up. People have theories about the cigarettes. When our mutual Jason Bailey, who wrote the book about Die Hard, he sent it to me to read, and I was like, "You forgot to include the bit about how Rickman, the McClane knows that he's not a hostage because of the cigarettes," and he's like, "That doesn't happen in the movie." I had put into my brain that had happened in the movie, and I've seen Die Hard 25 times. But I somehow, because I'd read about it a lot, had actually put that idea into the movie. And he pointed out, that doesn't happen. That never officially happens in the movie. So it's one of those things that collectively, culturally, we just invent and think of our own. It's just so fascinating.
Well, for me as a writer, the only explanation that remains is my least favorite. He's such a good cop. He can just sense that the guy's lying. But the actual reason is better. The other theories I have of how he knew is, and this is the one that always gets me. He says, "Well, the gun with an empty magazine is a different weight than a full magazine." That's how he knew. Except he's giving the guy the gun, not the opposite.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Jeez.
Well, I have one last question which culminates for this section, and then I think this has been such an education and such a delight, which is the humor section, which is often skipped over sometimes when we've done these movies. But one of the things I think that makes Die Hard endure is how it's so funny without ever being a comedy. It's a straight, hardcore suspense action thriller, yet it's also frequently hilarious. And I know that was one of your particular, amongst many of your gifts, but was your ability with dialogue. And I believe, I saw this recently, that Bruce Willis was talking about how you were actually phoning in lines to him while he was stuck in the air shaft on a mobile phone. And that's how you came up with things like, we'll come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
Well, you know what's funny about that? It's funny how circumstances, give you an opportunity for things. I was on the set a great deal because the movie was being written. If you've ever seen the script online, if you have it, I'll send you a PDF of it. You'll see that the revisions go on 2 pages. There's every several days there's new pages for like 7 weeks. There's constantly changing it and revising it. So, for example, the scene where he meets Alan Rickman, that was not in the movie originally. It was driving Joel and me crazy that we could not have the hero. Joel Silver likes to say these movies. These action movies are hate movies. They're like love stories, but they're hate stories. In a romantic comedy, the boy and girl have a cute meet, they have a couple of dates, and then they get married. In the hate story, the hero and villain have a cute meet, right? They have a couple of close calls with each other, and then one kills the other. The problem with this movie was there was no way for them to meet in person. Mm-hmm. And it drove us crazy because the phone calls is not exactly the same thing. So one day on the set, the equivalent of the tea lady, I'm making a UK filmmaking reference here.
I got it.
They came around with the craft services with snacks in the afternoon. And we're just sitting around waiting for a set to be lit. And someone said to Alan, Rickman, Alan, a lot of the UK actors do an American accent. Can you do an American accent? Someone else said, I don't remember who said it. And Alan said, well, I don't know if I do an American accent per se, but I do like, a California one. So everyone laughed, and I went, that's it. And I ran off, and I got Joel Silver. I said, Joel, you got to hear this. Come here. I said, Alan, do that again. And Alan does it again, and Joel says, why did you bring me over here? Get McTiernan.
Get writing.
And then we bring McTiernan over.
Yeah.
And McTiernan comes over, and he says, so? I said, so now he can meet Alan Rickman, and he can fool him. And John says, no, he saw him kill Mr. Takagi. I'm missing up my movie. So yeah.
No, you're right.
I'm thinking Mr. Miyagi. That's the other series. He saw him kill Takagi. So I said, have you shot that yet? He says, no, we haven't shot that. We haven't shot that yet. So I said, isn't there a way to shoot that where you don't see that? So we all went over to the set of the conference room, and then McTiernan walked around the room like this, going like this. And he said, okay, if we take the big conference table, which had a solid giant leg, instead of 4 legs, it had like a wall of a leg at one end. That's the one where the guy walks across the top later, shooting bullets into it. Mm-hmm. He says, if we turn that 45 degrees, I can have Bruce see the murder scene, but not see who pulls the trigger. So they start to move the furniture. The stage crew, he says, no, wait. I got to see the scene first. Go write that scene, because we're filming this tomorrow. It was on the schedule. The Takagi killing was the next day. So we went outside of the soundstage. They went to the nearest office building. Could have been accounting, or maybe it was like, stage rentals. And they said, you get out of your office. This guy needs your typewriter. So I sat there and I wrote that scene where he meets Alan Rickman there over the next, 90 minutes or whatever. And I brought it back at the end of the day. And McTiernan said, okay, we're doing this. And then they shot, if you look at the scene, you can see that Bruce can't quite see. He can hear who's talking, but he doesn't see who pulls the trigger. He doesn't know what anybody looks like. So that was how fortuitous, and it came up on the set. And the other thing that was fortuitous, I'm on the set a lot, and we were filming a lot of practical nights because when we were in the real building, you could see Los Angeles outside of the real lights of the city. Now, some of it's fake and some of it's real. The main lobby set was a sound stage, but whenever you're in the building on other unfinished floors, that's the real building. So we've been filming like all night, and I come back home, and I get in around 11:30 or midnight, and the phone rings, and it's Joel. He says, "You got to get right back here." And I go, "Why?" He says, "These morons bought actual air ducts, right? And they're so narrow, it takes Bruce Willis a month to crawl through them. And they should have built an oversized. If you ever look at any other movie that does air ducts, they build oversized air ducts where you can be on your hands, where you can crawl on all fours.
Yeah.
But here you have he had to crawl like alligator crawl. Like
right. Yeah, I think like Alien, for example, they're massive.
I need you to come back here and give me some stuff that Bruce can say to himself while it's taking him forever to crawl through the air duct. So that's what led to that stuff and some fun dialogue. Again, it's the
mother of necessity, the mother of invention.
Fate gives you lemon, so you make lemonade.
Now I know what a TV dinner feels like.
That was an ad lib from Bruce.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a really good one.
Well, suffice to say, I mean, I think that, this movie really kind of, it's another thing that it misses, it whiffs on, is like, it's just not funny. There's no clever quips, there's no sort of amusing moments, and there's no sense of how to embroider humor into these really dark and serious situations. And it's just another thing that it
There's a line in this movie that makes me crazy, which is McClane says to young McClane, like, let's do what we do best. And McClane says, what? And he says, killing scumbags. And you're like, that's just not something I think John McClane would... John McClane, that's a character, like, it's not funny.
Yeah. I Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
And also, how does he know his son does that? It's like he's known all along his son was in that business,
Right.
but he just found out today.
They have
that
no
his son was in the
relationship.
spy
it
business.
really is. It's like attempting to. It's like James Bond and James Bond Jr. What they wanted to
me,
do.
again,
It just
based
doesn't
on my
work.
experience, I saw a lot of evidence of second thoughts and recutting. I definitely have the feeling that they were waffling between the PG and the R because there is hardly anything in this movie that would get you an R rating, except for
Right.
the curse words.
Right.
I'm telling you, the level of bloodshed and visceral violence, right? It's not enough. I'm telling you, the R rating is in there because they said the motherfucker, which is an automatic R. You're allowed to say fuck if it's not about the sex act, and you can say shit once, right, and get PG. But if you use fuck in the vernacular for intercourse, that's an R rating. Right.
Wow.
So
And,
to
yeah.
me, I'm telling you, they got the R rating on this movie, which they wanted
Yeah.
to like tell the audience, oh, we're not like that wussy PG-13 like we had last time. We got the R rating. It was a last minute thought to put that in there. And when they cut away from the guy being the propeller brake, another example that shows you there was recutting when they get to the safe house. When they get to the safe house in Moscow, and the CIA superior sees him, he says, John McClane. There must have been some dialogue in the movie about how John McClane's reputation preceded him, or that he knew that his CIA operative's father was the famous hero of Nakatomi. Like I had said in the second movie that the first movie was on the news. We know notoriously, right? It's broadcast. And that's why in the second movie, I had some people know who he was.
Yeah.
It works really well. Yeah.
Just, like the guy that landed the plane in the Hudson River.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows who that guy is.
But he's still probably flying planes, and so he doesn't become like a national celebrity and give up work. That's what I loved about that choice. It's like it's so realistic.
People get noticed for things like that.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt in my mind that there was dialogue in this movie, like oh, this is your famous father, or something, and they cut it out to pick up the pace of the movie.
And it's
that
such
line is out
it's
of
so
nowhere.
short. The film is so short for a Die Hard film as well. I think it's like 97 minutes or something.
And it drags.
And it feels like it's 2.5
Oh my god,
hours.
it feels so
Whereas
long.
the original film is like 2 hours 10 minutes, I think, or 2 hours 13 minutes, something like that.
But
And
the first two movies are
never
both
stops.
210, 215 around that, and they seem fast.
Well, look, that's the end of this section, and I just want, we're about to take a break, and then we'll wrap things up. But we're going to let we've taken up enough of your time. But I wanted to give you, Stephen, just a chance to say anything else that you wanted to say. This is the end of our show, the end of this culmination of a labor of love about tracking Die Hard's influence and legacy. So I just wondered, how any final thoughts that you might have about this thing that you were so instrumental in shaping that changed the trajectory of an entire genre, an entire art form to some extent. How do you feel now, sitting back, having accomplished everything that you've accomplished, about the legacy and influence of the original Die Hard?
Well, I'm very happy to have been involved with it. It was one of my best experiences. It was one of the several films I made with the Larry Gordon unit. And it was a very hands-on experience. And what I liked about working with these people is that the screenwriters are not always in the loop once the movie starts. A lot of times you're at arm's length, or they don't even want you on the set because you may not know the protocol of this. In other words, like a screenwriter could be on the set, and the actor comes over and says, what's my motivation? And you say something to the actor, and then the director goes, what the hell's going on here? Why is this? What's going on? He says, well, my character's claustrophobic. Where the hell did you get that from? Well, I was talking to the writer. Get him off the, but I sort of know the protocol. If an actor comes up to me, I'll say, if there's something that's not in the script, talk to the director. So the teamwork that I experienced on this and other movies was extremely rare and welcome. And I think when I tell you some of the anecdotes here about how things came together fortuitously, because everybody's not only on the same page, we're on the same stage. You know what I mean? You're actually in the process of making it, and you can find new discoveries and discard things. And I can tell you one of the things that's endeared me many times to directors is when they'll have a conversation about something, and I'll throw things out. I often get invited into the editing room on my films, and I'll be the first person to say, we can lose that line. You can lose that line of dialogue. That's not important, but we need to put one back in. So I've been fortunate that the filmmaking process for me has not been bifurcated between my typing and going to see the premiere. That I've gotten to be and part of the fact is coming out of television. In television, as it existed then in the 70s and 80s, if you're a competent writer, you end up becoming a producer, right? And then you end up cutting. Like the first TV show I worked on was called it was the second attempt to do The Invisible Man. It was called The Gemini Man, meaning he could see him and he couldn't see him. Not to be confused with the Will Smith movie. And I was story editor, which is sort of the lowest rung of the producing staff. But over the course of filming the episodes, I would make a remark in the editing room. And the first time I did it, there was sudden silence. And I realized that the story editor's not supposed to talk in the screening room. And then Harv Bennett said, he can talk here. Because I said something that stopped us from reshooting. I remember what it was to this day, actually. He said it was the $6 Million Man protecting the beautiful witness of that week, the girl he rescued that week. And he hides her in a cabin. Right. And so Harv Bennett said, do we have a shot of him at the door? Like, when she says, be careful, and he could nod or something. We don't have it. We got to reshoot that. And I said, I think in last week's episode, when he hid the witness in a hotel, he was wearing the same jacket. And if you flip the negative and blow it up like 20%, you can get the checkout time sign on the door out of the shot. And so there was like dead silence in the room. That's exactly what I said. I remember this. And the editor said, "Son of a bitch, that'll work." They said, "All right, De Souza, you're allowed to talk." So anyway, the show got canceled, and they said, "Who's going to do post?" And they said, "Let De Souza do it." So I was like 6 months on the Universal lot, and they let me supervise the post production of the last 5 episodes of the series because everybody else went off to the next job. I was the last man standing. Everybody else went off to the next series, and so I had demonstrated. I also had been, made films in college and done a Cheech and Chong type, stoner movie like that nobody saw. So I knew my way around editing. So I had the skill set to participate sort of beyond the typing. And so that's why this and Ricochet and some of the other movies I worked on are some of my best experiences because I was able to see it all the way through. I want to have a ridiculous example. On The Running Man, we had our first test screening, and when you have a movie star sign a contract, it says in the contract that the star is available for X number of days for post-production looping, where if there's bad dialogue, you have to change the dialogue, you can have them come back, or if they're already on to the next movie, you send somebody to record it over there in Italy, wherever they are. So for the test screening of The Running Man, we said, well, we don't want to burn Arnold's looping days off if the movie's not locked. And someone said, Steve, you do a good Arnold. Why don't you do these wild lines? So I did all of the changed loop lines for Arnold in The Running Man for the first test screening. And then in the rush to finish the movie, we brought in extra sound editors, and the new guys could not tell me from Arnold. So in the finished movie, there's still 2 lines of dialogue coming out of Arnold's mouth, and it's me. And one of them is when they're trying to crack the code. He says, we do it outside. And then when they say, Chico, no, like that whole sequence there.
Wow.
I've got 2 or 3 lines of that. So my kids and my wife, they recognize that's me there. But anyway, that's how deeply I involved. I was looping Arnold's dialogue. So Die Hard is important to me because it was one of the films like Commando and Ricochet and the Running Man were like, I was in there from soup to nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm delighted that it's became a paradigm for a certain kind of movie. For what it's worth, it's become shorthand a Die Hard inna. It's become a genre in of itself. The Die Hard inna. And recently, in fact, I was asked by Time Out to rate all the Die Hard wannabes. So I gave my opinion of the Die Hardiness of them. To what degree? On a scale of 1 to 10, I think. No, I think it was Twinkies. I think instead of stars, it was Twinkies, like 5 Twinkies.
This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. We will have to link to this. I don't know how somehow this slipped through our net, because we're scouring for this type of thing. But what a perfect way to end this whole endeavor by teeing up that assessment. Rating the die-hardiness of the Die Hard on a Blank series of films by the co-creator of the entire series, Mr. Stephen E. De Souza.
Well,
thank you.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. You might as well link to my other chart, which is I'm always asked, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? So I have a totally cold-blooded, objective, analytical analysis of is it a Christmas movie, comparing it to what I think is, we could all agree, is a baseline Christmas movie, White Christmas. So you put White Christmas and Die Hard side by side. It's just totally objective, and it's a chart and a graph, and you could put that on your site as well.
Amazing. We will post both of those. Thank you so much for this incredibly generous thing that you did by giving us your time and your insight. I don't know what else to say. I'm just incredibly honored and touched that you gave us this time. What a wonderful way to end the show. And just thank you for making every Christmas that I've ever had magical with this movie and all your other amazing work.
Well, thank you for having me, and I think I have just enough time to get to the airport to take the company jet back.
We'll make sure that you have access to more than just Zootopia 2 this time.
We'll make sure that you get a Good Day to Die Hard on that flight. Don't worry. Both cuts of the movie.
Stephen E. De Souza, my friends and neighbors. I don't know. What a treat.
What an amazing way to cap all this off with so many incredible stories. I think the thing that I was going to say, that what I loved about that was what I sort of took from it was, in addition to many, many things, is being a writer or being a filmmaker. So much of it is about problem solving.
Oh, 100%.
Just like McClane, it's an interesting parallel of you have this character that's so good at problem solving, especially in a Die Hard with a Vengeance. And it's that is this process. It's how do you solve problems on the fly and come up with these solutions.
Well, it's interesting because we let him go there because we kept him for so long, and I think we could have kept him for about 3 more hours if we just let the man cook.
So many things.
Let the man cook. But I think also you learn whenever you do anything creative where you have to output and give people something when it's not, it becomes problem solving.
Yes.
Problem solving, and you become a producer.
Yes.
Right? That old adage that the first every brush stroke is an attempt to fix the first brush stroke. I love that experiment. I think that's true in writing. I think it's true in video editing. I think it's true I think it's, you're just constantly trying to make something
certainly
happen.
True when I go to a wine and painting class.
Yeah, well, that's because one of those two things we both will have maybe 3 wines and half a painting is my dream version of that. No, that was wonderful.
Speaking of, let's get a glass of champagne for the last episode and head over to the Die Hard Oscars. We will just do our briefly, because I didn't want to spend too much. I didn't frankly want to waste too much time on this, but in the interest of completion, let's do the Die Hard Oscars for A Good Day to Die Hard. The John McClane Yippee-Ki-Yay Award for Best Line. I've got 3.
Okay.
Do you know what I hate about Americans? Everything. Said by Alec. Do you need a hug?
Alec.
We're not a hugging family.
I don't like that line. I don't like it. The reason I don't like it is because I know you are. I'm not blaming you. I'm not. Hey, shh. I don't like that line because I don't really think that's McClane.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm on fucking vacation. Is John McClane's sort of catchphrase in this film, which Bruce can sell that. Bruce sells it.
Bruce sells their reconciliation scene, too. He's such a good actor that he just does less, and he gets out of the way.
So we'll go with that. I'm on vacation. It does recall Axel Foley, speaking of this weird Die Hard Beverly Hills Cop. I'm
not going for Father of the Year. I think that's a very good McClane line.
Who is? The Hans Gruber Exceptional Thief Award for stealing the film nominated Jai Courtney as CIA officer John Jack McClane Jr., Sebastian Koch as Yuri Komarov, Yulia Sneger as Irana Komarova. Some of these names I've got to say are pretty difficult to say. Radovijo Bukvich as Alec, who I thought was actually really good, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Lucy McClane in the theatrical cut. Toss one at the basket.
I'm just going to say Sebastian Koch because he's a great actor.
He's very good.
And he's in My Beloved Black Book, and he's in The Lives of Others. And in a more just world with a better written screenplay, he would achieve international stardom that he so richly deserves as a wonderful actor. And I don't think he's actually built to be a villain because he made his bones playing like just, in Lives of Others as this like very complicated playwright. So
has a lot of dignity, I think, and gravitas as an actor. The acting, I think the acting's good. It's just, the mechanics and the building blocks of the story, I think, are
You're really
janky.
right to say the movie has like 3 sequences. Like, is it just me or does that first car chase go on forever?
No, because there's no story. There's loads of plot and no story.
Yeah.
So if all else fails, crash some cars. The other problem with that car chase, it's like, it's well shot and it's there's a cool vehicle in it that's like an anti-mine vehicle, but it's like also a big bucket of who cares because the stakes are so miscalibrated. It's like, so John McClane is just like chasing after a car chase, being like, "Hi, son. Hi." Like, what? Compare that to Live and Die in LA, for example, where not just the execution of the car chase, but the character building and the story design is so brilliant that like there's a story and a mystery unfolding during a chase. The chase can't just be carnage. There has to be like this story. You have to think through the story and how it applies to the chase to make you care about it, Totally. So it's just really strange. The Dick Thornburg Award for Dick of the Movie, again, kind of tough.
Everyone. There's no not Dick in this movie.
Pasha D. Lichnikov as the singing Russian cab driver. He's not really a dick. He's actually a very fine actor.
That scene was improvised. And
it's one of those things, where it's like a scene where it's like the actors try to convince you that this is funny. And they're so good that you kind of like smile, and then you go, "Why am I smiling?"
Well, you know what the funny part is everyone loved that scene until the studio saw it and was like, "We have to fucking pay for a Frank Sinatra song now. Thank you."
Oh yeah. Whoopsie. I mean, I like the Sinatra sort of Easter egg going back to the detective, but it's such a this wouldn't happen. This is so weird.
I didn't really get to rip into it the way that I wanted to, but this is one of the most cynical movies I've ever fucking seen in my life, and it's depressing. It's cynical. Yeah. It's cynical in terms of its place in the franchise. It's cynical with what it does to the McClanes, but it's cynical politically. It just makes me sad. Anyways, let's keep going.
The dancing henchman Alec, played by the aforementioned Mr. Bukvich, and Sergei Koslesnikov as the corrupt politician, Viktor Chagarin, the one who is trying to railroad the other guy. He's kind of maybe the biggest dick, I guess. But I kind of want to give it to the cabbie because at least he almost as a compliment because at least he has a bit of flavor. At least he has a bit of like
good
personality.
Actor. He's good. And I like it. I like it when you put Bruce Willis in a scene with like an actor you don't know. I think that's fun.
For the last time, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to present the best death. And if he's available, we flew out the jet
Marco!
To get him.
Marco, are you... Oh, shoot, you know what? He's taking a nap. Wait, hang on, let me... No more table! Next time you have a chance to kill someone, don't hesitate.
All right, for the final time. So I've got 5.
I'm really glad you didn't make me do that in front of Stephen E. De Souza, by the way. Could you
we can't do our cringe lord shit in front
exactly.
of
the cringe lord shit is saved for us, Dave Palace.
Alec being surprisingly shot in the head point blank by Yuri. Irana Komarova crashing the helicopter in a slightly bizarre act of self-sabotage. Yuri being thrown into the helicopter blades by Jack. Let's just say he's in a highly enlightened position. John McClane doesn't even kill the bad guy in this movie. What the fuck are we doing?
But that's because this movie is about how boomers, it's a struggle between the young and the boomer. And so and they're setting up John McClane Jr. They're setting up the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles for John McClane. It doesn't work, but that's what they're doing.
That's what they're doing.
This shouldn't have been made. This just shouldn't have been made.
It just shouldn't have been made. And this is the problem, I think, again, with the difficult fourth film. Like, if it was going to be like a new trilogy and it was the second act of that trilogy, and I don't hate the idea, actually. I really like the idea.
Me too.
Of a father-son story. You've explored you've explored husband and wife. You've explored father-daughter. That's the obvious thing to do, but it's done in such a kind of like throwaway fashion, and they just suddenly forgive each other for no apparent reason, or it's just not like actually make those beats work
right
for drama, or have it be earned by action, and not just a guy like overhearing something around the corner like it's a soap opera, it just put a bit more thought into the story.
I have a theory
blocks.
that no one is ever going to become as famous as, say, Bruce Willis, or really, Alan Rickman would off the back of Die Hard. But, and there's a big but, I think Sebastian Koch would have enjoyed a bigger international career. And look, he's had a good career. If this movie weren't all... Die Hard had vibes. It had time for you to just luxuriate in watching Alan Rickman eat shrimp cocktail or whatever, or just kind of be like... you can break the vault, right? It has space for these characters to exist. And there's none of that here. There's no space. It's all just, like you said, all plot and no story.
Yeah.
And if there's a little more space, there is that scene early on when they're talking about parenting, and I'm like, this is Die Hard. I can hear this conversation between Bruce Willis and Sebastian Koch, and I'd be like, yep, okay, I like this. I like that we're hearing them talk to each other. I like that there's room for this in the movie. But the rest of it is just this, unending orgy of kind of weirdly shot action. It looks good, but it's the continuity is really vague, and I don't know. It's just so much opportunity
signifying nothing. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
Let's wrap things up with our final section of the traditional format before we do a little bonus bonanza at the end of the show with our mailbag.
Yeah.
With our last ever edition of the Double Jeopardy trivia quiz, where the scores can really change. Question number 1. Moscow-born actor Pavel Lisnikov, who plays the singing Russian cabbie in the film, is a familiar face in film and TV. In which uber-stylish action buddy film does he play an ill-fated undercover FBI agent who is blown to smithereens by ruthless neo-Nazis?
Clue?
You need to phone a friend.
Yeah, I need
Radio
to call,
Al Pal for the last time.
Mm-hmm.
This big screen adaptation of the classic television series was written and directed by Michael Mann.
Fuck, I knew it. I fucking knew it. It's Miami Vice.
That's right.
Yes, of
Coming
course.
soon on our Patreon podcast, 48 Hours of Buddy Movies, which we'll talk more about.
For mojitos.
Indeed. And we're a little while longer in the business.
Yeah.
About 18 minutes, if that.
Yeah.
Question number 2.
Two.
Australian actor Jai Courtney is no stranger to playing legacy characters in action movie Five Quills. Which iconic character does he portray in the 5th Terminator movie?
Is he John Connor?
He is not.
Is he in the 5th? Is that the most recent one?
No, it's not. It's the one before.
Legacy?
It's called Terminator Genesis.
Oh, is he... I don't know. I didn't see that one.
Do you want the clue?
No, you can just... right. Sure. Give me the clue.
This heroic role was originated by the great Michael Biehn.
Kyle Reese.
Kyle Reese.
I didn't get it right. I got it wrong.
What? I will actually... don't at me. I actually really like Terminator Genesis. I think it's actually a very clever time travel story. I think it's really cool, actually. All right, this is the last spin of the wheel for fan favorite section, Convoluted Corner. Question number 3. Actor Cole Hauser has a brief role in this film as the character of Collins, the fellow CIA agent whom Jack McClane meets at the safe house. But in which franchise-starting Die Hard on a Blank film, released the same year, does Hauser play a similarly doomed Secret Service agent?
Roland Emmerich directed it. No. Somebody else.
The other one.
White House Down.
No.
No, the other one. Olympus Has Fallen.
Yes, he utters the film's title, the Secret Service code, into his radio while dying. Because he was in all the trailers going, Olympus has fallen, Olympus has fallen. That's the last ever of Convoluted Corner.
I thought we were going to get more convoluted for the final corner. It's the final
How convoluted do you want to get? Get that whiskey and champagne. All right. Now, this is something that we've promised to our listeners, and this might pull at your heartstrings a little bit. This is our final farewell from our mailbag. Aww. So I'm going to read some nice little notes that were written by our listeners from all around the world, starting with this one from Neil in North Wales in the United Kingdom that simply said, "Hi guys, firstly, thanks for a great podcast. We'll miss it on my dog walks. Secondly, let's hear your modern day cast of Die Hard if it was about to be filmed for the first time. Who would play McClane, Gruber, Powell, Thornburg, et al.? All the best for the future."
Fuck, man, I forgot about this question.
Well, I had a couple of thoughts, like there's some more obvious ones, but I would say like, I have a couple of thoughts. There's, for Gruber, there's 2 actors that really stood out to me. The most obvious one is, of course, Christoph Waltz, right? Who I think would make an incredible Gruber.
No, he could be a good Gruber.
I also love Michael Fassbender for this.
That's good. He speaks German.
But where this all led to, and I sort of played around with this, I think it's like a fun game for people to play at home, and I think it's a great question. But where it kind of really led me is, one, I hope that this never happens. I know it's hypothetical. It's a great question. But what it led me to in this thought experiment when I was thinking about it, I was just like, you know what? What's really interesting about that question is, again, to the question that I asked Stephen, no one can play John McClane.
No, you can't do it.
No one else in the world. Like, it's just, and it's not to say, the actors these days, there's a lot of amazing actors that I love, that are like at the right age to play that. But it truly is such a unique lightning in a bottle collision of actor at the right moment and a character that no one else can play John McClane.
There's only one John McClane, and I think I think that's totally true. An actor who could like bring a similar, I don't even know. I don't think there's a good answer to this question, He's just too good of it. He's just too good. But I do like Fassbender or even Waltz, even though they might be a tad old at this point. But maybe not Fassbender. He could do it.
I had Sterling K. Brown as a potential Al Powell.
Sterling K. Brown could almost play Bruce. I mean, not play Bruce with John. Like he's got the right energy for both of the parts.
But again, even with that part, Reginald VelJohnson is like such. The warmth of that, to love a character in 3 seconds is a unique gift. And with Al Powell, you instantly love him. Before he does anything, he just shows up carrying the things and you love him straight away. It just shows you all of the magic of what the original captured. Our next one is from Alex in Delaware, who says, "Hey guys, a quick thank you for all the shows. I found your show when I was looking for content about my favorite Christmas tradition, watching Die Hard 2, Die Harder. Since then, I've binged all of your shows and discovered tons of action movies I never would have watched. Honestly, I still think some of them suck, but there are some true gems out there.
Not blown away though, right, Alex?
Keep up the great work, and I look forward to continuing for 48 hours of buddy movies." So thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Delaware,
that was great.
USA. The next one is from Ryan in Perth, Western Australia, showing the reach of the show. "My boys, thank you for a wonderful couple of years. I had already consumed every piece of Die Hard trivia, backstory, and oral history out there before finding your podcast. So I started listening as a cozy background listen, but you both proved that your passion is only matched by your ability to uncover fresh angles and interpretations of this classic film. I really love your show, and I now consider myself a wait for it, Die Hard fan.
Yeah! That's beautiful. Listen, if that's
Thank
the
you,
service
Ryan.
we offer the world, that's the service we offer the world.
Hi, Phil and Liam. Now that it's sadly coming to an end, I just wanted to say thank you for giving us Die Hard on a blank. Action films and genre films in general are often dismissed as mindless or trivial. Your podcast proves this is totally untrue. It's been so refreshing to hear you take these films seriously and discuss the themes, history, and craft that underpin them. I'm glad to be part of the Patreon community, and I can't wait to see what comes next on 48 Hours of Buddy Movies and beyond. Many thanks, Mark Hudson, Whitley Bay,
Mark.
England. Mark's
been a big contributor and fan of our Patreon, patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies, to hear a very exciting interview, which I think we're going to talk about very briefly in a minute.
Indeed. Stay tuned for a little surprise. Phil and Liam, I really wanted to just thank you too. This past year has been one of the most difficult of my life, and discovering Die Hard on a Blank was one of the few consistent bright spots. Listening to you and your guests discuss movies I love, movies I needed to see, and ones I barely knew existed has been something I've looked forward to each and every week. Thank you for both allowing me to gain a deeper appreciation for a genre that has always been a comfort for me and takes me back to a time when I discovered some of my favourites with my own father. I'll be there for 48 Hours of Buddy Movies. Wouldn't miss it. Jake Baumler, Houston, USA.
Thank you, Jake.
Starting to get a little misty here. This is the last. We got 3 left. A little bit longer. Hi guys, long-time listener from Germany here. I'm pretty sure I started listening to you back when Tapley talked with you about speed, as I've been following this monster 50 mile per hour podcast, and he mentioned being a guest on your show. I've been enjoying it ever since, and I'm sad to see or hear it end. But all good things mustn't they? Die Hard is a film dear to me. I first saw it in my early 20s in the cinema back in November 88 when it was released in Germany. And yes, Hans Gruber and the German terrorists were presented as international terrorists in the German dubbed version. This may be more understandable given that the third generation of the Rote Army Fraktion, RAF, a far-left militant group founded in 1970, had been active since 1983, killing at least 5 people, injuring many more up till 88. They'd stay active until 1993, but that's another story and an interesting rabbit hole of research. So anyway, and quite apart from actual terrorism, I love the movie from the get-go. The actors, humour, action, excitement, technical precision, the whole package, and it's been on my list of favourite movies ever since. And obviously Die Hard on a Blank was just to my taste. What I enjoy most about your show, apart from wallowing in action movie nostalgia, is the interesting perspectives each of you two give on the movies. Very open-minded, knowledgeable and funny. Not that I always share your assessments, but you've constantly given me food for thought. It's been great. So here's a big thanks to you for all the shows these last 2 years that have been a constant. You've been a constant in my life. 2 unrelated things. 1, I'm terribly afraid of flying, and after seeing the movie, I tried making fists with my toes upon arrival. And it actually helped me unstress. Maybe just wishful thinking, but I do still do it in stressful situations. Switch to prescription meds for when I absolutely have to fly, though. I mean, what good is it being stressed after the whole flight? That's always been my weird thing with that fist on the toes thing. And then the last one is, here's the Die Hard on a Blank drinking game should one be needed. Whenever Phil pronounces genre in his wonderful northern British accent, you drink a shot. Pro tip, don't start with the Con Air episode.
Or don't play that game. I actually think is the correct tip.
Stefan Dinter, Stuttgart, Germany.
I like that the Germans suggested a drinking game. They are.
Let's hang out and watch Bayern Munich versus VfB Stuttgart.
And
one
then
of
Con
my
Air and do shots.
One of my this is a really good. This is our penultimate one. One of my earliest movie memories is of my dad and 2 older brothers replaying the shoot the glass scene from Die Hard ad nauseum. For better or worse, I saw some unlucky henchman's kneecaps burst into a chili-like paste before I ever saw a boob. That moment is visceral. That moment is grotesque. That moment is one of the most transcendent images I've ever seen in motion pictures. Which means I was always predisposed to like Die Hard on a Blank. Yet, ironically, it was our host's disarming sensitivity that secured my attention faster than McClane's showdown with Marco. The first time I heard Phil get emotional about his love of Tony Scott, I'm going, the outright deficit of snark and surplus of plain-spoken reverence touched me instantly. Similarly, Liam's ongoing recollections of his late father felt like an ersatz monument to my own dad, not to mention the films that he and I shared before he died when I was 9. In short, the podcast's secret weapon was an implicit celebration of paternal love and idiosyncrasy. Whether discussing the Elder Gawthorne's declaration to jump off during the climax of Broken Arrow, or Liam's old man pointing out the literal blood money in Snake Eyes,
Burgeoning film critic he was.
Any fan of the pod knows that the Die Hard OAB universe is as informative as it is familial. Thus, I was always reminded that the films discussed were never just Die Hard clones, nor were they lazy excuses to indulge in unexamined nostalgia. They were tethers to the most important people and experiences of our lives. Fittingly, Die Hard on a Blank makes you feel like you've been invited to a late-night hang with treasured cronies or siblings. The fact that I have had the privilege of doing just that with Phil and Liam speaks to their inherent warmth, unconditional support, and genuine love of community. Sure, I could expound on their utterly unpretentious, often hilarious, yet proud scholarly approach to action cinema, something that inspires me weekly. But after the last Gruber has been smote and the final face has been offed, there is simply no substitute for enduring brotherhood and unbridled camaraderie. Except, of course, for a pair of kneecaps exploding in slow motion. Congrats, Phil and Liam, and thanks for everything. Jim Panola, Northern New Jersey, USA.
Jim Panola.
One of the best things that's come out of this whole
I would agree.
thing. It's the last one. Phil and Liam. Time flies, as they say, and more so as you get older. It's unbelievable that you've reached the end of your run. I've listened to and loved every minute of it and regard myself as a super fan. A Brucey? I'm sure you'll come up with something better. Even when I didn't appreciate the movie featured, I was still entertained by your analysis and insights, and on more than one occasion I changed my opinion as a result. Under Siege accepting. There have been many highlights for me during the series, not least of which was having the honour of guesting on the Desperate Measures episode. That was one for my bucket list. I've loved the reminiscing of you both when describing how you first saw the movie, and it brought back memories for me of family trips to the multiplex. Though I have to confess, some of Phil's memories of our visits had gone completely from my recollection. Old age again. Another highlight for me has been Phil's analysis of Die Hard DNA, e.g. the Star Trek episode where it's hard to see at first glance the connections, but under the microscope the evidence mounts up. The show has also helped me discover films I never would have gone to see on the big screen in a million years, and I now have a huge collection of pre-owned DVDs and Blu-rays to revisit. So thank you guys and your knowledgeable guests for educating and entertaining me every other Wednesday. I shall now have to content myself with your Patreon podcast, which is equally quite excellent. Congratulations on a great achievement and show for which you should be rightly proud. It's now time, as someone once famously said, to jump off this train and continue your journey on another. P.T. Southport, England.
I like the slow build to realizing. I mean, I've seen this email before, but I kind of forgot. But I like the slow build to being Petey, you're the best. You're the literal dad of this podcast, Petey.
Oh boy. Love you, Dad. Okay. Final reflections on this show, Liam. What has been the best thing about doing this for you?
I mean,
what else do you want to say as we, jump on the next train?
I think the thing to say, I think you taught me a lot about how to think about these movies, about how to write about these movies, and I think the biggest takeaway is that we've sort of helped people. Helped is the wrong word, but we've played a role in helping people think about the movies in a new way. And I think I'm not a nostalgic person in a lot of ways. Yeah, it's a weird thing to say when you've made a podcast about the movies when you watched as a kid, but I think the best version of that nostalgia is creeped in, which is giving people something to connect over that is meaningful to them, which is these movies and the role they occupy in our lives.
And they kind of keep these memories alive, and they keep memories alive of people, we love, and whether they're still with us or whether they're not, and how movies can be this, a way to connect us to that. For me, I think the fun and camaraderie of doing this with you, it's wild to think that we never met really, but we'd met, I think, just on Zoom.
Just on Zoom.
Before we recorded the very first episode, but
Totally.
I just had an instinct that I was like, you know what? I think I want to do this show with this guy. And it was one of the better ideas and that I've had in my life. Because having a partner in crime who pushes me to think differently, I think I love that about our conversations. And, you've introduced me to new films and references. And, it's been an amazingly, I love exploring, when you meet a friend and you're like, man, I could talk to you for so long because I'm so interested in
Yeah,
how your
same.
mind works.
Yeah.
You know, and what you think about these types of things. That's a special thing. So exploring our friendship from square go has been a delight. And all the people we've met on this journey, you know, I'd never met before, all these amazing critics and film thinkers, and you know, sharing this experience with my friends and my mom and dad, and the relationships that have come out of this, and the sense of community that we've created. And without this, I never would have fell in love with Cosmo Vitelli, which is my favorite discovery of this whole thing, is The Killing of a Chinese Bookie, which I had never seen and now absolutely adore.
I mean, I think, you know, similarly, I think the actual real cinephile in this conversation is Phil Gawthorne. It's the secret truth is that you know so much about these movies and you're so thoughtful about them, and they don't get enough credit. So I feel the same about you, buddy, and I'm glad we continued the train even after I had to leave LA. And I love you. You're the best. And it's nice to finish something. It's nice to finish something without feeling completely burned out by it, which is, as you know, when you make things creative and they sustain over a period of time, it can be really hard to maintain that energy. So, you're the best. I love you.
I love you too, bud. All right. We will try not to get too gushy, but this has been an emotional thing, and I'm glad that we've actually achieved what we set out to achieve. Has there been a favorite, like, discovery for you? Oh, like something that maybe
I mean, I think
movie?
the show clicked for me. Really, this is a joke, but I think it clicked when we did Blown Away.
I was going to say, I thought that because you're obsessed with it now.
I'm obsessed. Well, I just think doing this process has taught us how to think about these movies differently, and they're substantive and they're real. And I want to say very quickly, thank you to people like Bailey, who understood the vision of the show and has been super supportive. Tapley, Bilga, Blake.
Yeah, I have a whole list here.
There's so many people to thank. So
we can do it right now. Like, look, thanks to everyone who worked on the show, helped make it happen, or contributed to its success, which is Sugar23, Michael Sugar, Mike Mayer, who was there right at the beginning, making this thing happen, who believed in us and encouraged us, Suki Chu, Olivia Alma, Tyson Hubley, Evan Sills, OJ Borge and his team at BBC Radio 2.
OJ.
Each and every one of our amazing guests, Ronald Young Jr., Jamel Bowie, Dominic Nero, Adam Volerich, Carl Brandt, Sean Fennessy, Nick DeSemlian, Chris Tapley, Bill Garibiri, Paul Shear, Rob Hackett, Blake Howard, Galen Fraish, Isaac Butler, Chris Tilley, William Eubank, Ben Rufus Green, Katie Walsh, Brendan McDonald, Brad Payton, Andy Majorano, Brandon Stroisnig, Justin Koo, Laura Koo, Scout Tafoya, Peter Gawthorne, Travis Woods, Jason Bailey, Matt Zoller Seitz, Justin LaLiberty, Matt Stroll, Shahir Dowd, Jim Panola, Mitchell Beaupre, Randy Wilkins, Jason Kleberg, and Stephen E. De Souza.
Jesus.
So we might have one last final mini episode where we announce, we're going to have to cut it short today, but we're going to announce the final season of 48 Hours of Buddy Movies, which will include a exclusive interview that kind of fell into our lap with none other than Mr. James Belushi.
Woo! Woo!
So that is a Patreon exclusive. So if that doesn't get you to sign up at www.patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies, because we're going now.
Yeah.
You gotta say, we're sweetening the deal for you.
No more Tenet jokes. No more other stupid jokes that I make in every episode. Yeah, please. Even as a free member, just get on there so you can see, because we don't know what's next. We know we have 13
got 13
episodes
to go, not including the bonus Jim Belushi interview, which I think was going to be coming out next. So sign up at www.patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies. It's only $4.99 a month. We've now done like 30 plus amazing films on there. So if you want to keep listening to us and support independent podcasters, please do sign up. Is there anything else that you want to say before I kind of give my last little word here?
I think keep in touch with us. Just find a way. I think, Phil, you've in the most complimentary way, you've rewired my brain on how I think about movies. And being a lifelong cinephile, or movie, all I think about is movies, essentially. That's all I think about. It's real. Like, my wife will be like, she'll be talking to me about something really important. She'll be like, "Are you listening?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm also thinking about movies at the same time." And that's, that's tricky. But I think you've rewired this show, and you have given me a different lease on how I think about movies. And I think that that's a nice thing to have as you enter middle age, is a deeper appreciation for and deeper thought. You know, we talked about this once, how like you might not even like a movie, but you're so fascinated by it. Like that's kind of what this has birthed in me, is this kind of like, well, you know, not everything works about this, or, oh, this is a cool thriller, but like, let me break down. I'm doing a video right now for CityCast about The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which is barely about it being a thriller, but more about what does this movie say about Seattle in 1992. And I don't think I'd be able to do that without you. So thank you.
Oh, that's an amazing compliment. I feel the same way, you know, but I don't want to just, you know, continue to, you know, we need to have a nice cold pint of beer and
maybe,
you know, toast to
two.
this.
Maybe two.
Maybe two. I don't know when that will be, but I hope it's soon. The last thing that I want to say, thanks to my manager, Andrew Nalathambi at Range Media Partners, my lawyers, Dean Bahart and Benjamin Rubenfeld at Different Britain and Law. If you want to contact me professionally, you can find me on social media or contact me through those reps. All of that available, all that info is available on IMDb Pro. Look out for a forthcoming film called The Last Druid, starring Russell Crowe. It's Die Hard in a Druidic stronghold.
It's Die Hard in a Druidic stronghold. We got to come back for that one,
Look
baby.
out for that movie. Then the last thing that I wanted to say, if you'll indulge me, is simply this. Nothing lasts forever, but it's a good day to die hard.
Wow, he did it. He did it. What a pro. We love you all very much. I can't believe this is ending, but I also feel good that we've done the justice to this show that it's earned, and we ended it. You know, we had a long conversation about how do you wrap something like this up, and it feels like the right time. So thanks for everything. We'll be back next time on www.patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies. Die Hard on a Blank is a podcast from Philip Gothorn and Liam Billingham. Tyson Hubley makes our art. You can hear exclusive episodes of our Patreon show at patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies. Rate, review, subscribe, and tell your action movie loving friends about the show. See you next time on Die Hard on a Blank.